Now, if you ever need an example of how the separation between party and state has been erased by the ANC, then I submit it is the fact that the president of the country is using taxpayer resources, the state attorney's office, to defend a corrupt practice of the ANC.
How has the policy of cadre deployment damaged the capacity of the state? I posed this question to Dr. Leon Schreiber in a recent episode of my podcast. What follows is a short extract from our longer conversation. You can watch the full discussion by clicking on the link in the description below. Enjoy.
And I would start out by saying that really cadre deployment fundamentally is corruption. I think that's the point that we need to emphasize. It is corrupt in every sense of the word. It has led to corruption in the sort of classic sense that people may think about, the 1.5 trillion rand estimated that was lost during state capture. Think about the corruption we saw at Eskom, Transnet, all of these state-owned enterprises. And behind that corruption, inevitably, you find someone who was appointed through the ANC's cadre deployment committee. So that's the first part of the corruption. But cadre deployment equals corruption in a much more profound sense as well, because it corrupts the very purpose of the state. The purpose of the state is not to serve the ANC or to funnel contracts and opportunities and jobs to ANC cadres. It is to serve the people of the country. And that is why it is so fundamental when you erase the separation between party and state, because you end up corrupting the state apparatus in its entirety. You end up with corrupt appointment processes where people will apply for positions and they think they're competing on the basis of their ability to get a certain job. But actually that decision has been made behind closed doors by the ANC's national or regional or provincial deployment committees. So, I mean, this thing really extends throughout all levels of the state, your local municipality, your provincial administration, your national administration. And so it is fundamentally and inherently equal to corruption. I think then when you draw that through to how one even starts to fight this, because it is such an leviathan that has really spread everywhere. My fundamental point of departure since coming to Parliament in 2019, being fortunate enough to assume this portfolio of public service and administration, and someone with a real academic background in political science and governance, was to start at the root, which is to expose what is going on here. And so that's why a lot of the initial work was around, as you say, applications for information in terms of the so-called Paya Act. And initially, of course, the ANC refused to give us any kind of information. We then wrote to the Zondo Commission and said that if you are serious about understanding the foundation of state capture, you have to investigate cadre deployment. And very specifically, you have to obtain minutes from the meetings from that committee to understand what kind of decisions they took. What role did that committee play in appointing the people who captured the state? And, the Zondo Commission ended up doing that. They wrote to the ANC and said, essentially, give us the stuff that you refuse to give to the DA. And the ANC was forced and compelled essentially to do so, because otherwise the State Capture Commission would have subpoenaed this information. And it was then through a subsequent Paya request to the Zondo Commission that we managed to actually obtain and publicize those minutes. The problem, however, is that the minutes were extremely limited. They only covered a period between May 2018 and May 2021. And they actually do not tell us anything about the period when Jacob Zuma was president. And most importantly, when our current president was the chairperson of the National Cadre Deployment Committee in the ANC. And so we felt that that is wholly insufficient. We did not accept Mr. Ramaphosa's excuses about why there aren't records, because here's the thing, David. The president told the State Capture Commission that there are no records from prior to May 2018. They couldn't find anything, doesn't exist. But the very first minute, the first agenda item on the first minute of those documents is the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. So we know for a fact on the ANC's own documents that there are minutes from prior to this period. And this is a very serious thing. The president was the chairperson of this committee. It appears that he lied about the existence or non-existence of these minutes in order to cover himself, in order to cover up his own involvement in deploying the people who captured the state. And because of how serious that is, we have gone to court, and our case will be heard on the 3rd of October, to force the ANC's hand to surrender essentially all documents from the period since 2013, when Ramaphosa became the chairperson of the Cadre Deployment Committee. And we've gone much wider than just minutes. We want emails, we want WhatsApp group conversations. We want to know every single point of information that influenced appointments in an illegal and we believe unconstitutional way. So should we win that case, we will be pressing ahead very aggressively to make sure that the ANC stops hiding these things and continuing to pursue it. If they try to pull the kind of tricks we've seen them pull in the past, we will make sure that we respond in kind and get hold of this information. The second court case is on the 23rd and 24th of January. That will be heard also in the Gauteng High Court. And this is the bigger case, if you will, because this is about the very principle of cadre deployment. It seeks to abolish this practice by declaring cadre deployment in all its manifestations to be unconstitutional and illegal. This is entirely in keeping with what the Zondo Commission report found. And the reason we have to go to court is because President Ramaphosa, once again, has essentially dismissed the Zondo Commission's findings, and in the most extraordinary way is opposing this court case, which is against the ANC, in his capacity as President of the Republic. Now, if you ever need an example of how the separation between party and state has been erased by the ANC, then I submit it is the fact that the President of the country is using taxpayer resources, the State Attorney's Office, to defend a corrupt practice of the ANC.
Yeah, and before the Zondo Commission, Mr. Ramaphosa said that there's nothing wrong in principle with cadre deployment and it cannot be faulted. And, I think what you just spoken about, that convergence of the party and the state, I think is the primary problem here. And in many respects, that is an extension of the philosophy of the ANC, the National Democratic Revolution. It's a very command and control kind of philosophy, wanting to centralize all power in the hands of the party and then use that power to affect certain outcomes in society. But the more they do that, the less capable the state actually becomes, which is quite an irony. So I just wanted to look at some of the findings of the Zondo Commission. And, as you pointed out, there's a clear contradiction with the Constitution. And there is Section 197 of the Constitution, which states very clearly that no employee of the public service may be favored or prejudiced only because that person supports a particular political party or cause. I mean, that seems to be quite clear-cut to me.
Yeah.
Do you think that alone would be sufficient to strengthen your case against this principle of cadre deployment?
I think that particular clause is vitally important. It is central to the case that we have built, but it is not the only factor that we're putting to the court. So you're absolutely right that insofar as cadre deployment advantages those applicants for positions or promotions on the basis of their loyalty to the ANC, that is clearly in contradiction to what you've just read from the Constitution. And so I think that is very, very clear. And it's quite astounding how difficult it is for the ANC to understand this point. But our case goes further than that. We argue that a number of fundamental constitutional rights are at play here. The right to equality, for example. If you and I both apply for a job, but you've got the inside track because you're favored by the ANC's deployment committee, and the person making the appointment receives an instruction to appoint you, regardless of whether I may be the better applicant, that fundamentally violates my right to equality. And just think about how many times that must have happened over the last 30 years. Because, as I said, this practice does not only exist at a national level, it exists in all 9 provinces in the form of provincial deployment committees. And we also know it exists in the form of regional deployment committees that interfere with appointments to municipalities. This is not DA speculation. This is contained in the minutes of the ANC's National Deployment Committee. They clearly reference the provincial and regional committees as well. So we are talking about thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of applicants over a 30-year period who have sought to enter public service because they have the skills, because they want to contribute to fixing South Africa, who have been denied that opportunity because they happen to not be loyal cadres of the National Democratic Revolution and the ANC. And that is a profound constitutional injustice.
Thanks for watching. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed this conversation, you might want to check out the full interview. That's linked over here. You can also subscribe to my other channel. That's linked over here. My name is David Ansara. Until next time, take care.